All right, as people are getting in and getting connected, I'll just go ahead and welcome everyone to week 8, the final week of Elevate AEC. And we are ending on a crescendo this week with a jam-packed full of great sessions. Today is definitely going to be an excellent session. I can vouch for this guy, Chris Simon. I've been working with him for now 4 months. And I have personally benefited from my relationship with him. Chris provides executive coaching and consulting to develop leaders by tapping into their leadership potential, which is what I'm working on. Building appropriate self-confidence, creating life-work balance, very important, and encouraging complete dedication at work. And we all know that has been shaken up this year. His work with clients has resulted in increased productivity through delegation, training of future leaders, and creating a strong culture. So very critical. Chris also works alongside leaders to propel growth, impact, and leadership in their area of influence. Today, Chris is going to talk to us about creating a life-work balance in today's environment. Now, interestingly, this work-life balance or life-work balance shot to the top of the biggest challenges rated by AEC staff post-COVID, when we had a best firms to work for survey that was open in mid-March. And I had said, is it that, before we were having trouble fitting our life into our work, and now maybe we're having trouble fitting our work into our life because many people are at home. So this is so important. So thank you, Chris, for presenting today to the Elevate AEC audience. I'll hand it over to you.
All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for the great introduction, Chad. And today we're talking about creating a life-work balance in today's world. And the place I like to start off when I do all of my presentations, as I get my clicker working there, who am I to speak on this topic? Why am I talking about this versus other things? And so a little bit about my background. I've been an addiction therapist for over 10 years, I think about 13 years now. And about 4 years ago, I transitioned and I've done executive coaching. I've done leadership and team consultants. And the reality of it, my specialty is people. It's the people side of business. And as I like to say, in a triangle of business, there's people who make products or serve people. So often we emphasize the product or the service, but 2/3 of that equation is the people part. And so I love to study to help people to tap into their potential, to build great camaraderie and workplace environments for people to excel at their workplace. And that's why I'm here today, is to talk about just that topic. To start with, I'm going to talk about why it's life-work balance and not work-life balance. That term alone actually shows some of the stigma around life and work. And so math for our architecture and engineering conference here, 168 hours in a week. If you sleep 8 hours a day, which I don't know anybody who actually sleeps 8 hours a day, you will sleep 56 hours a week. And the average American works 49 hours a week. Here in Northwest Arkansas, where I am based and Zweig group is based, it's actually a little higher, but New York or rural areas, it's different. But 49 hours a week is the average. That leaves 63 hours left of life. So that's why it's called life-work balance. Life is actually the bigger part of our existence. And work is a smaller part. It doesn't mean it's not an important part. But even switching our language to say this is about life-work balance gives us permission to look at life differently. That work is not at the center of it and all of it. It's important, but it's not everything. Today, we're going to focus on 4 topics. The first one is the problem, which is life-work balance occurs unnaturally. It's not the natural state of being. The second one is looking at the context. What happened to the classic 8-to-5 job? Then we're going to look at reclaiming balance through foundational values. And last, and I'm going to spend a good chunk of time on this, are proven ideas that will work for you in creating some balance. Ones I use in my own life and ones that I help people as a therapist and as an executive coach develop some balance in their own life. And so we're starting with the problem. What is the problem? The reality is life-work balance occurs unnaturally. It is not our natural state of existence. Using a scientific term of entropy is the world is naturally breaking down. It's fallen apart. And if you look at any of our schedules or our lives inside of work or outside of work, That's where they're all going. Therefore, if this is a law of the universe, of reality, it helps us to accept that truth that balance isn't a natural thing. It's something we have to fight for. It's something we have to prepare for, and we have to create. And that's this next one. Balance is created because the world, people, business, colleagues, everybody will take from you until you say no. It's that colleague who says, can you help me on this project? Yes, absolutely. Kay, can you do this, help with me with this thing at home? Yes, I can do that. As long as we continue to say yes, more and more will be given to us. And if you are someone who produces well and are likely to say yes, one of the natural occurrences is people asking you for more help. And so because you're good at your job and you're very helpful, sometimes that actually puts more on our shoulders. What that means is it's actually the small decisions that compile into significant impact. Helping one person here or one person there is not a lot. But if we do this with 5, 7, 15 things, we become overwhelmed. We lose our balance. An analogy I like to think about with this is marriages or relationships. Very few marriages actually end in large cataclysmic events of an affair or something of the like. Most of them actually end, it's the small little things that build up over time, the little nuisances and the little disagreements that slowly create a rift. It's the same thing in our workplace, and it's the same place in our life. It's those little things that we allow to creep in that take some of that power or control away from us, that actually throws us off balance. And so the good news is that you don't start with grand things to create balance in your life. You actually start with the small ones, one step at a time, and let them build so that you can take control of your life. One of those things that we're going to talk about specifically is taking control of your schedule. We've got a few things to go through before we get there. This idea of life-work balance. What is life and what is work? And so as I use this term, this is how I define it. Life is all aspects of a person's existence on Earth. I chuckle a little bit as I see Earth there as SpaceX is about to launch some astronauts. But all of our existence on Earth, all 168 hours a week encompasses our life, whether we're awake or asleep, at home or at work. That is our life. It's everything. Work is a profession, a career, some sort of service we provide in which we earn a wage. There's some people who work that don't earn a wage, but we're going to throw all those in the category right here. Work is something that we do to contribute to society, to make a living, to make a difference, often to find meaning. But with that, life is not all about work. As we looked at, there's a lot of hours outside of work in our week. And in that, work is actually a part of our life. It's not something separate or different. It's part of it. Just as sleeping is part of our life, relationships are part of our life, work is part of our life. And so part of creating life-work balance is learning to accept some of these truths that work isn't everything that's made to be. In Western culture, we've almost became an idol or a god out of work, where for many it's a means to an end. I'll speak for myself. I love what I do. I think I have the best job in the world. I'm a therapist one day a week. I'm an adjunct professor one day a week. I do coaching one day a week, consulting one day a week, and I stay at home with my boys one day a week. I'm all over the map, but I love it. It's balance for me. And it took a lot of effort and time to create that schedule that works for me that probably won't work for all of you, and that's okay. But if we begin to look at life is all about it. How does it intermingle in a way that I desire? That's where life-work balance comes. And the reality is a well-balanced life develops through effort. Again, it's not naturally occurring, it's unnatural. And so there's 3 traits that I've come across as my work as a therapist, a coach, and a consultant. I read way too many business books and research articles and counseling books to understand how do people grow, how do people make an impact, make a difference, become a great leader. And as I've scoured these resources, I continually come back to 3 main traits of someone who's impactful in their life. And I'll be honest, I didn't like them. I still don't like them at a level. But they're the commonalities across the spectrum. And the first one is to make an impact, it takes hard work. One of the phrases I love to tell my clients, hard work is the shortcut. If you want to become a great leader, if you want to become a great at engineering, architecture, draftsman, whatever it is. It takes hard work. It doesn't occur naturally. Everybody was once a novice. And so hard work is actually how we create this life-work balance. The second idea, the second common trait of those who are making impact is focus. They learn to focus on what's important and avoid what is not. The phrase major on the majors, minor on the minors. They learn to give their time and attention to where it deserves to be, not necessarily things that are urgent or the tangential rabbit trails that we can follow. And the third one is discipline. This is the one I don't really like. The people who are really successful, the people who make a big difference, impact in their personal lives and their friends and family, maybe their religious organization, their work, any of that, it comes through discipline, through having structure, through creating habits that actually create the environment to where you can excel. It doesn't happen naturally. And as a leadership coach, I wish I had a different answer, but those three traits, hard work, focus, and discipline, are the ones that separate people who make an amazing impact from those who don't. And one of the things I love most about those three traits has nothing to do with your title and nothing to do with your position. A junior level architect who's 22, fresh out of school, can embody those traits and make a huge impact wherever they are. Going into the context piece, what happened to the 8 to 5? And here's the reality. It died a long time ago. And the fact that that died can be a benefit or it can be a challenge. There are a few jobs that still have 8 to 5, but they're few and far between. Some government jobs and certain ones. And it's not always what we think it will be. It's often about our mindset in this. We think of the 8 to 5 as to sit down and to make a difference and be able to check out and go home. Yes, they could do that. But if you look at the wages of the 1950s, compared to inflation, they were much lower than they are now. They had an 8 to 5 job, but they didn't have the disposable income. They didn't have the luxuries we have today. So it was a cost benefit analysis. To work 8 to 5 to make less money, but to have more balance in life, many people took it. And today we still have that option. And it's looking at this plus and minus. What do we have now? Well, the average American works 49 hours a week, which is 5 10-hour days. And so in that, there's some benefits to it. There's longer hours, which is a negative for many people, but there's also benefits where now there's much more choice and volition in our workplace. Looking at this picture of the 1950s, it was a very strict hierarchy. You worked on what you worked on and that was it. It was actually more like a factory than what we think of an office today. We don't have that. At 22, one of those junior engineers can help lead a project, can have ideas, can push things forward. That didn't happen back then. And so when we think about this idea of the 50s and the 8 to 5 was a much better time, yes, in some ways, and no in others. And what that really comes down to is perspective. What you choose to think about, what you choose to remember in it. To show this, we're going to do an exercise. So if you're sitting down, I encourage you to sit down, put your feet on the ground, put your arms by your side or on the side of your chair, on your desk, whatever's comfortable, and close your eyes. I'm going to share a list of phrases, and I want you to pay attention of what happens in you, what emotion stirs, what changes you feel in your body. And so with your eyes closed in a comfortable position, notice what comes to mind when I say these. You're worthless. You're not good at your job. You always let people down. You can't do anything right, and you can always do better. Just sit there for a second. What washes over you? For many, it may be a little bit of sadness, of remorse, of shame, or I'm not good enough. And so continue with your eyes closed. I'm going to say another list. So pay attention of what happens in you. You are valuable. You have something to offer. You are great at your job. You're always learning and growing. You don't make mistakes. You learn from them. What do you feel now? Most likely a little bit of confidence, a little bit of assurance. You can open your eyes now. This is an important lesson in life-work balance in all areas of life. What you choose to think about, matters. If you think about all the mistakes you make in the office and with your clients and the presentations, you're going to feel the weight of those mistakes. If you choose to focus on the positives, not burying your hand in the sand, ignoring all the bad stuff, but accepting them and moving forward, you will act differently. My view of this is the premise for my coaching practice. One of the pitches I tell clients early on when we're discussing coaching services is my job is to work myself out of a job. I'm here to help you understand that the way you walk into a room and the confidence you have is more important than your PowerPoint presentation. We've all seen it. The person has the best PowerPoint presentation, but up there, they're anxious. They get sweaty palms, they shift back and forth. We pick up on that. We're social animals. And that's at the heart of what I do in coaching and therapy, is helping people understand who they are and how they can show up as the person they desire to be. And one of the most important parts of that is choosing to remember the good stuff, the things that you're proud of. One of the exercises I do with many of my clients, and I do this myself for years now, is it's called a kick butt log. With my clients, there's a little more profanity in it. But what I do is ask them every single night before you go to bed, write down 2 things you kicked butt at that you're proud of for that day. The reason for that is, let's end on a high note. Yeah, you may have made a lot of mistakes, but what are 2 ways you did great, that you're proud of who you are? And it's not supposed to be an accolade or something you did. It's who you are, how you showed up, how you responded. We live in a very discouraging world. We have something called the negative bias, where naturally we remember the bad things. We're just trying to fight against that and say, no, I'm valuable. I did something good today. I did this and this. So you can go to bed remembering, yes, I'm valuable. I have something to offer. I can make a difference. When we hold those thoughts in our heads, we respond differently. We show up differently in an amazing way. And so whether you work in an 8-to-5 job or not, if you continue to have that mindset or push to create that mindset of, I've got a job and I'm going to make the best of it, you will make the best of it. You will find a way where it works wonderfully for you if you choose to create it. The third part I'm going to talk about today is this power of fundamental values. And values can have a litany of definitions for people. And so what I'm talking about in values is who you are. Who are you at your core? I take every one of my clients through this exercise. As Chad talked about, we've worked for 4 months together. This was the first thing we did in our first session, is asking about, okay, what are your values? Let's write them. It takes hours for people to typically write down their values and the next parts of this exercise to live them out. And so if you were going to go up to a stranger on the street or someone in this webinar that you just met for the first time, and you told them, hey, these 5 traits are who I am, and they'd be able to walk away and be like, I understand that person pretty well. Those are your values. Why do values matter? Well, first, it's being true to yourself, and that creates balance. It creates comfort. It creates some authenticity to who you are. And so looking at these at a couple other levels, I start in the bottom left. It's foundational because being true to yourself rather than being what other people think you should be or what you think other people should be. There's only one Chris Simon in this world. And if I try to be like Elon Musk or Steve Jobs, I can't do it because I'm not them. I am me. But if I accept who I am and pull out attributes of them or other people that you may admire and try to assimilate them into your values and your character and your personality, you can make a great difference. But I'd be a terrible Steve Jobs because I'm not him. And so often people try to be other people because they like what they've achieved or what they've done. And what that does is it creates this incongruency in us. And the second one in the top left is who you are. It's who your values are, who you are at work, at home, with your friends, with any religious organization, with your neighbors, at work, everywhere. When you're alone, it is who you are. And the third one on the top right is what values do is it creates consistency. It helps you be the same person in every situation, which creates a mental strength, some mental fortitude. One thing research is now showing that if you're a different person at the office than you're at home, it creates a mental and an emotional fatigue. There's a weight on it. We were not meant to be two-faced or have two different personalities. And I've seen this a lot of time with my clients who are very strong and persuasive and type A in their work. And they come home and they're almost docile. They're quiet. They take a secondary stance in the family. And why is that? Because they have to do so much to bring that bravado to be someone they're not. It takes so much energy to do that. When they go home, they just sit down in their chair and be like, oh, I'm so tired. That's what this does. When you don't have that congruency, and values allows you to have that congruency, to be the same person. And because here's something that I'm passionate about in this, in coaching and counseling and helping people grow. When you are your true self, when you find these values and live them out, you have more gusto, passion, creativity, and ingenuity than anyone else in the room. And the reason for that is because you are being authentic and true to who you are. Have you ever know that person when they're in their sweet spot, when they find the stuff that they're really passionate about, that they just come alive? You can almost see it in their eyes where they just, that excitement. And when you talk to them, there's this creative juice that flows through them because it's so natural to them. That is what living out someone's values are. And here's the reality. You can do that in your business. You can do that at home. When you do that, it creates a level of balance because it doesn't take the energy to be this person here and this person here. And I want to be clear. I'm not saying that there's different slants to who we are. Absolutely. I show up different as a coach, as a consultant, and as a therapist. But with that, who I am is consistent in all of that. And it's just a little different manifestation. And the fourth one on the bottom right, it provides guidance. What it does is it really provides guidance for how to make decisions for who you are and what's important to you. Should I take this job or not? Well, if you don't have values, often people go through, is it enough money? Does it give me the responsibility I want? Versus using values as, okay, can I be the person I want to be there? For most of my clients, I think if 70 or 80% of the time you can live out your values and love who you're doing at work, that's amazing. Nobody hits it 100%. I hate admin. I'm not a good admin person, social media. But to do my job, to work for myself, I have to be adequate in that. Often I outsource a lot of that because it drags and drains on me. But my values gives me a guidance on how I make decisions, what jobs I take and what jobs I don't take, what roles I'm willing to accept and which ones I'm not. And to give an example, here's my values. My first value is faith. This is not a religious talk to push it on you, but this is just authentically who I am. My faith is foundational to how I see the world. And so I wake up every morning and have time, religious and spiritual time, that's important to me to help center me on who I want to be that day. My second value is family. Family comes before everything else. After my time with God, family's first. And so if I have a weekend plans with my family and a work client comes in with an emergency, hey, I need to do this. To live out my values, I have to say, you know what, I can't do it then, maybe I can do it later. Because if I want to be that person that I want to be, I have to say no sometimes to great things, but to live out these values. My third one is character. I want to be worthy of being a good coach, a good therapist, and good consultant before I even meet with a client. I want to be able to do all the exercise myself before I give them to a client. I want to read the books I suggest, do the exercises, be a person of a character who wants to and is deserving of helping other people out. My fourth one is encouragement. I love encouragement. We live in a very discouraging world. And so I want to uplift and encourage people. And that leads to my fifth value, which is empowerment. I want to help empower people to be their best version of themselves, to do only what they can do well. And by doing that, they have an amazing impact on themselves, on their family, in their workplace, and in their community. Because again, they're only that one person and only they can do those amazing things. And so I want to empower people to do that. And what I've seen happen is when people embrace this and run with it, everything changes. Some of you maybe thought that this would be a couple of quick tips and tricks on how to do that. We'll get there later, but I really want to challenge you of what's most important, which is how can you be authentic and true to yourself? Do you have values in which you live out that you do every single day? Some of the questions I ask around that are just this, reflecting on them. Where do you spend your time? If I say family is important to me, but I don't actually spend any time with my family, I'm incongruent. I'm full of it. And sometimes it's a hard reality. After I have clients do values, I have them do a congruency check and say, great, let's look at your schedule and see, does it fulfill these values? And if not, it's not a bad thing. It's like, okay, let's work on it. Let's work on bringing them more in so that you can be that true self. Because in that, you feel that internal balance. If we don't have any balance in here, we can't have it around us. The second one is lifestyle. Does your career, your focus, your hobbies, your time promote your values? If I say family is important to me and I work 80 hours a week, it's not very congruent. If I choose a career, if being honest and very integrity focus is important to me and I work for a company that has ethical business practices, that's not very congruent. The third one where I ask people about is absence. When do you put your values on the shelf? Again, this is not meant to slap people upside the head, but it's ask, if this is really important to you, when do you put them aside? Why? For what reasons? Is it money? Is it prestige? Are you scared of making a mistake or not looking perfect? That can be really enlightening for you to realize, who am I and when does that get pushed to the side? And when am I not that person I want? And are there particular situations and roadblocks where that happen? And if I recognize that, then maybe I can change and be more authentic to who I am. Some of you may be asking, okay, how does this relate to life-work balance? Well, as I said a second ago, if you don't have that balance in here, if you don't know who you are, what you're about, what makes you feel alive, you're not going to be able to create a balance outside. And so that's why having foundational values is so important, so that when I go and hang out with my friends or with my family or extended family or clients or prospective clients, I'm the same person and I'm comfortable. I don't put on a facade. There's a level of comfort I have internally, and I hope other people feel it. I hope maybe even it comes through this presentation. I'm just me, and I'm proud of it. And that doesn't mean I don't have my faults. I absolutely do. Talk about some of those in a minute. But what it does is it creates this comfort within me where I don't have to fake it. I don't have to be something I'm not to try to get ahead. There's a great quote by Gandhi that says Western people spend 35 years sacrificing their health and their wellness to get money and to retire and stop working, and then spend all their time in retirement spending their money to get their health back. And I think there's some truth to it. You don't have to wait until you're retired to have a value-driven life that brings happiness and joy to you. You can do it now. It just takes those three things we talked about earlier: some hard work, some focus, and some discipline. So now I want to talk about some proven ideas. And this is going to be the bulk of our time today. We have about 20 minutes left for this. And I want to talk about techniques, methods, resources, things I do in my own life and things I do with my clients that help create this life-work balance. Whether you have values or not, these will hopefully be applicable to you and you can walk away and implement them right away. I always start with this quote in this conversation. Warren Buffett, not everybody may be a fan of his business practices and everything he does, but what he does, he's an amazing philanthropist. He spends a lot of time reflecting on leadership and impact. And he said this quote that's always stuck with me. He said, the difference between successful people and really successful people is that really successful people say no to almost everything. They say no to almost everything. And this actually goes along with this values-driven perspective and philosophy I hold, is if you know what's important to you, where you do your best work, where you come alive, and what's important for you in your personal life and your professional life, it creates a focus. So that if other things try to pull you away from that, no thanks, that's not for me. Hey, can you help me on this project? It's actually going to take me away from that. That's not something I do well. It's going to take me away from the things that I'm currently working on, and I don't have the space for it. So no, I can't. Again, it goes to that litmus test of what values can be is, do I take this or not? And Warren Buffett's life has shown a lot of it by saying no to a lot of good or even great opportunities. It allowed him to stay in his sweet spot, to do what he was so good at and passionate about, and created the empire he is. And so how can you do that in your own life? Well, we're going to talk about three specific areas in which you can create balance. And so the first one I'm going to talk about is balance in life. I'm going to start in the bottom left corner. You got to pursue values. Create a lifestyle that you desire by what you say yes and no to. If something is important to you, if family is important to you, and someone asks you to work overtime or to take on a project that's going to have you to do extra travel, say no. And people are like, well, I can't do that to my boss, or there's a lot of money involved in here. I'm like, okay, here's a bit of a fallacy I want to break. You can always say no. That doesn't mean there's not going to be consequences, but you can always say no. You're allowed to push back to your boss and say, no, I'm not really good at this project. Can I do another one? They're also welcome to say, no, you have to do this anyways. That sometimes happens. But more often than not, we just don't speak up. We just say, yeah, this is fine. And we keep going. But if you really want to find that value, you want to find that internal balance and external balance, pursue your values. One example I like to use for this is particularly at work. If you, about 80% of my work is with engineering architecture firms. So I've become very familiar with the industry. And one of the things that every organization does differently is developing its next generation of architects. Some people love it, the mentorship, the focus, everything that goes into it. Some people don't, and that's fine. If mentorship's really important to you, if you like developing the green 22, 25-year-old engineers, great. Is there any way you can do more of that? And some of the tasks that you don't enjoy, maybe somebody else in your team or your department actually enjoys those tasks. Can you just swap? So you do more mentorship and they do more PM or admin because they enjoy it. See, when as an organization, we begin to pursue our values, we begin to recognize how to put the right person on the right seat. That it's not just this job needs to change, it's how I engage the job. All organizations need to develop the next generation of leaders, but if you really enjoy it, is there a way you can do that more because it helps you come alive? Because you can be that person that excites you, and because of that, you come with that excitement, that passion that somebody else can't because it's not their favorite thing to do. The second one here on the top left is abide the limits. A value-based life and being a great leader and finding balance, end your workday on time. Be home when you say you're going to be home. Be present. Show up to meetings on time and leave on time. And it sounds so simple, but we often make it much more convoluted than that. Do what you're going to do. That's the definition in integrity. And if you want balance, if you're running late from one thing, which throws you to the next thing, your balance is off for the day. So if someone's still talking in the middle of a meeting, you can just say, I've got to go to the next meeting and walk away. Again, certain meetings, you can't do that. But again, part of this is learning where you have control in your life. And we have much more control than we often think. The only one thing we have control over is ourselves. But there's a lot of control in that. What I say yes to, what I say no to, what I accept, what I push back against, when I get to work, when I leave work, how well I work on projects, how much I look at other things or get distracted. We have a lot of power over ourselves. The third one is, in balance in life, is plan rest. All of our days are not meant to be full of work. I've fallen into this trap sometimes where I work really hard during the week and I come home and looking out my window right now, I see the pile of leaves that I raked the other day but didn't have time to bag. And if all I do on Saturday and Sunday is house chores around my house, I, again, don't live out my value of family and spend time with them. And so I have to plan rest. Every Saturday morning, my wife and my two boys, we go on some sort of adventure, a walk, a hike, something from usually 8:30 to about noon. And it's every Saturday morning, and I love it. It helps me get through the week because I know, like, oh, this is going to be so much fun. And this is something I've experienced in my life, and I've seen it so in my clients. When you thrive and succeed in your business life, it gives you permission to check out and thrive in your home life, and vice versa. If you're thriving in your home life, it almost gives you permission to check out on Monday and say, okay, that was a great weekend. I'm ready to go to work and plow through this. It's a symbiotic relationship. It's not separate. So plan for some rest, some relaxation, have some fun in that life. It actually helps you be more productive in the workplace. For those of you who have a Judeo-Christian background, it's the idea of the Sabbath, where God on the seventh day rested. Well, if that's part of your background, great, go to that. But now research has actually shown that humans function on the 7-day cycle, that after 6 days, we need a day off. And so whether it's religious beliefs or just the scientific beliefs, we are not machines. We need rest. We need to take a break. We need to be able to say, okay, I need to check out. And we're actually going to talk about this more in a minute. The fourth one here is undercommit. We live in an overcommitted culture where our capacities are full. And what happens is when a curveball happens, which life always throws as a curveball, it overwhelms us. We can't handle it. So rather than be surprised when the next curveball comes, because it's not an if, it's a when, we're ready for it. Undercommit, have capacity to be able to handle the sways of life, because life always sways. And I'm not just talking about work, I'm talking about at home too. A lot of people love this really strict 8 to 5 work-life balance where work is here and home is here. Even more so post-COVID, even if you're working from home or not, it was never like that, at least in the past 20 years. Because what's happened is we leave for a 2 o'clock dentist appointment because dentists are only open from 8 to 5. And so we allow sometimes our personal to come in to our work or even to take a phone call from our family when they call. But sometimes we won't take that 5 o'clock evening call that a client can only make. I mean, if we really want this balance in life, it's got to be this push and pull, because pure home work-life separation doesn't exist. But if we can accept that it doesn't exist, rather than get upset when it comes, again, it's that mindset thing. We respond very differently. All right, next one is balance and preparation. Here's 4 great ideas of how you can get some balance in your life by thinking ahead. The first one at the top left is bookend the day. I'm a huge fan of Michael Hyatt. I've got his book right here. It's called The Full Focus Planner. If any of you have used it, on my bookshelf, I've got multiple of them over there. It's a quarter planner where you write out activities for the day, the week, the month, yearly goals, quarterly goals, and to help get some congruency in your life. One of the best exercises in that book is what it calls startup rituals and end of day rituals. How do you start your day? For me, my home is 13 feet that way through that door, and I go from work to home. I don't have the 20-minute drive as I used to. And so I have to plan to be in the mentality I want for work. The analogy I like to use is Tiger Woods. He does not walk up to a golf ball and just hit it 350 yards. If you're a golf fan or any sport where there's a high skill involved, Tiger Woods goes to the driving range. He has a routine there. He has a warm-up, a putting routine. When he goes up to actually the tee box, there's a grip that he does. There's a stance. There's the rolling. All of that is a physical representation of getting the body and where you want, but it's physical reminders to get your mind where you want. Have you ever been rushed and ran to a meeting and just floundered? What if before the workday you got into the mentality of I'm going to be a great businessman or businesswoman today? How differently would you enter every meeting you had? Very differently. My startup ritual takes me about 20 minutes to get into my day, but it makes me so much more productive. It's more enjoyable. And at the end of the day, I have a 20-minute end of the day routine where I start to tidy my desk. I work through my work from the day. I plan for the next day so that I can close my computer, put my phone in its charger, walk out that 13 feet away over there and be done with work. Because I'm very guilty of thinking about work when I'm with my family. And that's me not fulfilling one of my own values. So part of my job is to have that discipline, that structure to create the great mindset for work, but then also a great mindset to go home and to be present. The second one here is that realistic timeframes, the bottom left-hand corner. I am terrible at this one. If I have a meeting down the road at a local coffee shop and I'll say to myself, oh, it takes 15 minutes to get there. Let's be clear, it takes 20 minutes to get there, and once I made it in 15 minutes. Are any of you else like this? I know I am. I think in optimal timeframes, not realistic timeframes. So rather than saying planning and leaving at 12:45 for 1 o'clock meeting that will take me 20 minutes, I need to be realistic to myself and say, hey, this isn't my personal best. It's going to be 20 minutes. Even more so, I should probably be 25 because I'd love to get my coffee beforehand. I don't want to run in 2 minutes late and be rushed. Again, the idea of preparation, if we can engage in our work and our home life in a better mindset and a state of mind, everything changes. The third one on this follows it very well, which is that white space in the top right. Create margin and buffer. And we talked about life throws curveballs. Well, let's plan for it. Let's plan white space for what goes wrong. I've got a client right now at a local engineering firm here who's a project manager, one of the best, but his big challenge is 30 to 50% of his day is putting out fires. Some of you may relate to this. So if that's the case, if that is the norm, that 30 to 50% of your day is put out fires, that means 30 to 50% of your schedule should not be full. That's right. If you know that time is going to be filled by other things, all you're going to do is be rushed, pushed, stressed, and anxious the entire time because you're trying to squeeze things in. It's accepting that reality. It's creating that white space to say, hey, I know I need this much time for this stuff. I'll give myself even extra, because what happens if you have extra time? There's other things to do. So create this white space for all those unexpected stuff, rather than functioning in that dream of where everything goes right. Nothing on an engineering architecture project goes right. There's always challenges. So plan for it, be prepared. So then when it's happened, it doesn't throw you off as much. And that's this the fourth one here in the bottom right corner, the top three. This comes from my favorite leadership book, Extreme Ownership, How US Navy SEALs Lead and Win. It's nothing, part of my job is to read all the leadership books to know what's good. And these are two former Navy SEALs, and I think that's what's helped them write this, because it's very clear, concise, and to the point. A lot of books are not like that, which is why I love it. But one of the topics, it talks about preparation and the idea of when they're going into a project that they have, they do a debriefing before and they ask the question, great, what are 3 things that could go wrong? What's everything that could go wrong? What if we did that in business? What if when we're going into a meeting, we can ask, okay, what are the 3 questions they're most likely to ask at the end of this presentation, and be prepared for them? With a project, what are the 3 most likely things that are going to go wrong? What are the 3 issues we may have with our contractors? If you plan all those around and think about it, when they happen, they don't throw you off. You're still on kilter. You said, okay, yeah, this comes. We have a plan for this. Just asking those top 3 questions can be so powerful in all areas for life, because then we're planned for not the unexpected, but the unlikely or the undesired, but they're still likely to happen. So let's prepare for it. I can guarantee you 90 to 95% of your problems can be eliminated just by asking this question of what could go wrong, to anticipate the needs that you could have. All right, and the third one is balancing and scheduling. This one's very focused on work, but it goes in all areas of your life. The bottom right, I'm starting with decline meetings. It's okay to decline a meeting. Just want to make sure everybody knows that. We live in a culture where we're inundated by meetings. I've worked with some executives who 80, 90, 100%, even 120% of their day is filled with meetings. And the reality is that is not productive. Even if you're a CEO of a company, there's times where you have to do action items. We have to actually write out strategic plans. You can't do that if you're in meetings all day. A lot of companies are having people in anywhere from 15 to 30 hours of meetings a week. And what happens is we're invited for meetings for, oh, I think it'd be good for you to know this, or I just like to have your expertise here in case it's needed. What if when you get a calendar invite to just shoot them an email, great, thanks for this invite. What purpose can I serve in this meeting? And my encouragement is attend meetings where you can provide a strong contribution or you receive a benefit. If you're just there for FYI or for a backstop in case they have an obscure question, that's probably not the best use of your time. And if it's not important for you to be there, decline. They said, oh, well, there's this one part that's good for you to be at. Great. Do I need to physically be there, or can you just send me an email afterwards and let me know what my action item is? Oh, I could probably do that. Great. You just saved an hour. What if you did that 5 hours in a week? It would be completely different. And this goes to the next one, which is right above it, is the 45-minute meetings. I'm a huge fan of 45-minute meetings, because what it does is it creates a sense of urgency. It provides time to get stuff done, but not for all of the ancillary information that often comes. And that's for the meeting side. But from the other side, it gives you freedom to reflect on, what are my action steps? What needs to occur? Great. What do I need for my next meeting to prepare? As a therapist, we do 50-minute sessions for that exact reason. so that after my client walks out of the room, I can take some quick notes. I can take a glass of water. Very important part, I can go to the bathroom. We've all been in those meetings where we're back to back to back and we feel guilty going to the bathroom and being a few minutes late. What if instead you, at 40 minutes into a meeting, you say, okay, let's wrap up. What are the action items? What does everybody need to do? You wrap it up very clearly, and then you're done with 15 minutes left to do any of that remainder work and to prepare for your next meeting. Because then you can go into the right state of mind in that meeting of not rushed, not frantic, but prepared. That changes how we show up at work, and it gives us an internal balance to where we're not just running to the next thing. The third one here is the top right, which is schedule breaks. 5 to 15-minute breaks throughout the day. As I said earlier, you are not a machine. You are not meant to work 24/7 at work and at home. You're not meant to just go, go, go. Psychology also shows that our brain works best in chunks. It's anywhere from 50 minutes to 3 hours is where people work best. Myself, I'm about an hour and 15-minute guy. So after an hour and 15 minutes of working on a hard project, I take a 5-minute break. I may go get a glass of water. I may take a quick walk around. And what it does is I purposely stop focusing on the task at hand, and I focus on something completely benign. And what happens is some of those unconscious thoughts and even those conscious thoughts, they begin to assimilate in a way that couldn't do it going straight at it, but they just slowly congeal when I get back. Often I have new energy, I have new ideas and new creativity. I come with a new level of gusto to where I'm ready to tackle it. Breaks are actually an integral part of peak performance. It's the same thing when you're looking at any sports teams or any other difficult task where people take breaks, they rotate in and out because we're not meant to go at such a high level permanently. One thing I like to mention here, lunch breaks. Take your lunch. Your brain needs the break. And here's the math part of it. Just thinking, again, context, engineering and architecture. If after lunch, you crash a little bit. I'm one of those people, if I need to write or be creative, I have to do it in the morning, but I'm great at meetings in the afternoon. So I plan my schedule accordingly. Most of my meetings are in the afternoon and most of my production times in the morning. Well, and if in the afternoon, I need to work on some production and I'm not the best, say I'm operating at 50%, right? You've had that time where you're writing a presentation or writing a report and you're just going half speed. You know it's not very good. You know it's not very fast, but you just push through it, okay? If I'm operating at 50% for 4 hours, I just got 2 hours of work done. If I take a 15-minute or even a half-hour break, go for a walk, grab my dog and take her for a walk, play with my kids for a little bit, beauty of being at home. And I come back and now I'm back at 80%. 80% of 3.5 hours. I can't do the quick math on that, but it's much more than 2 hours. It's actually more productive to take a break, to come back in a better state of mind than it is to push through. But that's not the mantra of Western work, of American culture. It's no, you have to push through, you have to do the hard stuff. And though that may be the mantra and the perspective, it's just not true. It doesn't work. And so rather than just doing the same old, let's do what's actually helpful, which is to take that break, to come back. Again, you can do the math. It's more productive to take a break sometimes. And there are times when that's not possible, and I'm not talking about that, but that's fewer and far between. Most of the time when you're pushing through some drawings and you just start rubbing your head and rubbing your eyes saying, whoa, I'm starting to see double. Great, there's a sign. Take a 5-minute break. Go get a glass of water. You can always be more hydrated. Go for a walk. Go call a colleague. We can't drop by desk anymore. So I am someone or give them a call. Give your mind that break and then come back. And I can almost guarantee you will be in a better state of mind and more efficient. And this is kind of the crux of my entire philosophy of coaching. When people are more confident in themselves, when they're more balanced, when they recognize how to take breaks, they are more efficient, they are more productive, and they are happier, which leads to more productivity and more profitability for the company. Most people put it the other way around. When we have money, we can do those things. We can do coaching and leadership development. And my argument, and I know I'm biased, it's the opposite. If you really want to operate at max efficiency, you've got to look at the people side of it. How can you get your people to give their best, even more so when they're working at home because it's different? Breaks are part of that. Scheduling 45-minute meetings, declining meetings. And the fourth one here is schedule production. I typically have 3 to 4 blocks in my calendar that just says production, anywhere from 15 minutes to 2 hours. Why? Because after most of my meetings, I have action steps. I have things I have to produce. And again, if I leave my calendar open and say, I'll do it when I have time, when do we have time? There's always demands on us. So schedule times to where you can produce. And this is different than that white space I was talking about earlier. This is when do you pump out project the best? Block that out. If someone gives you a meeting invite, say, I'm unavailable. How about at this time? Create that so that you can do your best work. And so that you're not scrambling to do it in 15-minute chunks. I know for me, I write a lot of policies. And when I get in a groove, I just got to get in a groove. Sometimes at 4 hours, I'm just in there and I can put out 8 hours of work in 4 hours. But if I try to do it in 15-minute increments, it's going to take me 20. So again, a large part of this is understanding your values. It's understanding yourself. What do you need to thrive? And these 12 ideas I gave, which is balance in life, in preparation, and in scheduling. It's about allowing you to be the best version of yourself, allowing you to come to yourself in a wonderful way to where you can enjoy your work, where you can do a great job, and where you're happy, your boss is happy, you do great work, everybody's happy. It just comes from a different mentality. It's not just pushing through, it's about working smarter, not harder, about being true to yourself and living those values so that you like going to work, you like who you are there, and in every area of your life, so that when you come home, you're proud of what you've done at the office. And then when you go into the office, you're proud of who you were at home. You're proud of the time you gave with your family or your friends or hobbies or whatever's interest to you, because you're authentic and true to yourself. And by being that on the weekends and after hours, it gives us permission to go into work and to do great things. I hinted at this earlier. I end every meeting with these 2 questions, some of my coaching clients who may be on here, you know these questions, and for you, take them, steal them. What are 2 takeaways you have from our presentation today? Write them down. They could be a main point. They could be an ancillary comment I made or a joke I made, but it just struck a chord. What are 2 things that you want to remember from this? Because again, we're human. If you made notes of 2 pages, you can't remember 2 pages worth of stuff, but you can remember 2. So what are 2 takeaways you have from this talk today that you want to remember? Take a moment and write them down. All right, second one is action items. Okay, those are your 2 takeaways, wonderful. What are 2 ways you can put those into action, that you can develop or implement them? Think about that. If it's the idea of, I want to get better at my scheduling, great. That's such an abstract goal. We're unlikely to achieve it. So make it concrete. I want to get better at my scheduling. Okay, what is that? I want to decline 3 meetings this week. It's a great action step. Or I want to schedule 5 45-minute meetings. There we go. Keep working on that. Because what happens if we don't take that abstract thought and put it into practical steps, we're going to forget it. I'll forget it. I'm just as bad as anybody else. And so, as I said, this is how I end all my coaching sessions, all my presentations. Think about 2 ideas you want to remember and 2 action steps to move forward. On that note, thank you for attending. We got a few questions I'm going to answer in the last few minutes we have. Here's my email, chris@elmery.com, my phone number, website, LinkedIn. I post a lot of stuff. You can just search for Chris Simon Elmery on LinkedIn. I try to post a couple of times a week just on leadership ideas. But I hope this was helpful for you. This is the stuff that I believe in and that I live out as best as I can. And I make mistakes regularly and I forget things regularly. And this is what I walk through with all my clients. And it's a different way to look at it. But I think it's the way that works best for me and works for a lot of people is, again, we're not machines. How can we live a life that's true to ourselves in our home life and our work life? And have that congruency and have our passions come through. All life is different and it begins to feel more balanced. All right, I'm going to a couple of the questions here. What are 3 questions you prepared to receive for this presentation? Wonderful question from Anonymous Identity, asking my question back at me. Yeah, so when I write this presentation, I asked, what are some things that people are really gonna want? And that's where the scheduling came through. is people often ask about scheduling. What are practical steps for that? The second half of it is people really love practical steps. So that's why I had 12 ideas at the end we're going to do. Great job asking that back to me. Is the erosion of work-life balance the personal response of the individual to cope with, or a structural procedure problem? Great question. And the answer is both. There are policies of an organization that will affect the work environment and the culture. More often than not, we have more power than we believe in that organization. Just because a policy says something, there's often a lot of way in which that policy can be enforced. One of those examples is clear job descriptions. And earlier I talked about, well, if you really like mentoring and developing younger architects, that may actually shift some of that policy for you to take on more of it. But if you find a colleague who likes, let's say, back-end work a little bit more, and you really like mentoring and you switch, go to your supervisor and say, hey, I think this will work for both of us. Is this okay with you? More often than not, they're going to be thrilled with it because they're recognizing you're passionate about it. And so you're going to elevate the quality of mentorship, and that person's going to elevate the quality of administration and back-end work. And that's better for each individual, it's better for the team, and it's better for the organization. So often we have to focus on that one thing that we can control, which is ourselves. How we think about something, how we come to the conversation. And so whoever asked that question, you are right. Focusing on work-life balance is a company issue. But also we can't wait till a company makes some sort of policy that works. And more accurately, even if you're a company of 20 people, a company policy is not going to work perfectly for everyone. We're all going to have to take what they give and then make it work for us and tweak it here and there so that we can live a life that we love going to work. I think I have the best job in the world. I love what I do. And partially because I worked really hard to get there and create this balance that's taken me years to get here. And I've had to sacrifice things along the way. I could make way more money working for an organization than what I do now, but it doesn't provide me the lifestyle I desire to where I can take off every Tuesday to be with my boys. And there's times like today where I give a presentation on Tuesday. That's fine. And I do that very knowingly. But to be able to do that, it just took a lot of work and effort on my part. And I think sometimes we can play victim to, oh, well, that's just a company policy. It is a company policy. Make it work. You can do that with clients and architecture drawings. You look at things like, this does not make sense. Okay, we'll find a way to make it work. And you do, because you're brilliant, you're creative. Do the same thing here. If this is the policy, how can you creatively reflect on that? Here's one. Has COVID affected how you counsel people? Hard to say no when you may be trying to keep a business afloat or successful. I don't quite understand that question. How's COVID affected how you counsel people? If you could give a little more clarity on that, that would be wonderful. We're on the hour. So Olivia, do we need to stop or can I keep asking questions?
You can, yeah, we can, if people are able to stay, we can continue for the next couple minutes.
Okay, you guys are welcome to go. Thank you for attending. If you have to go somewhere, I hope this was helpful. For those who are left, isn't comparing the average work salaries from the golden area recognized current day salaries with those? Might have been paid less, but your dollar up further. Yes, that was a quick analysis of the 1950s saying that pay there was different than now. It was. A lot of things were different than now. And that was part of my hope of that, of emphasizing that is the 8 to 5 that we often idealize in our head. There are other parts of it that we just focus on the part we like, and there's other parts that we purposely forget. And I'm guilty of that all the time. It's the idea that human memory is very imperfect. We remember the positives and forget the negatives, or remember the negatives and forget the positives. And so I was just trying to use that 1950s as the 8 to 5 has its benefits. It also has some of its drawbacks too. What are your thoughts on institutionalizing mandatory overtime? That is a difficult one in this, particularly with engineering architecture, because there are often times where projects go long. And I've been working with a project manager at a local firm here. And one of the things that we're really focusing on is a lot of what we talked about the top 3, about planning white space, planning productive time, and planning for when things go wrong. I think one of the challenges of the engineering architecture field is there's so much stuff that goes wrong. How can you plan for it? And I think organizations can get better at planning for that so that overtime is less necessary. And that's one of those that goes both to the people working from home, which is often where people are now. People are putting out 40 hours in the week. I know some people in 40 hours are doing 60 hours worth of work, and I know some that are doing 20, right? And so this goes on us as individuals to do our best work, even when nobody's over our shoulder watching us, but also for organizations of how can we plan this better? If we know that this contractor we work with is always late, great, what can we do to prepare for that? If we know that the client is likely to do changes at the end, how can we do that where it's not going to throw us as much for a loop? It's really thinking from the strategic things of, we know things are going to go wrong, let's think about it. And by doing that, you can prevent some of that overtime needed. About the institutional mandatory overtime, that one I'm just gonna, I'll leave off the table for right now, but good question. How do you respond to employees that expect an 8 to 5 schedule, which as you admit is no longer feasible, especially right now we're working, it's so fluid? Great question. I think 8 to 5, even more so with COVID, many architecture firms are working from home. It's great. I work from home for the past 3 years. I think what is a better way to manage people is not necessarily time cards, but it's about quality and quantity of work. And notice I said both, because I know some people are having challenges right now in COVID that people are putting those 40 hours in, but they look at the drawing saying that these need to be 90% drafts and they're at 60%. That's a problem. That is a personnel problem of talking about, do you understand what 90% means? And if so, are you managing time wisely? But as I said earlier, we would go to the dentist during the work week because you can't go on the weekends. We would do other things that flux that. And so the idea of just working 8 from 5 at home, I think is relatively unrealistic. Because for me, I typically start 8:30 now because my kids, I get the blessing of having breakfast with my kids every morning and helping me get dressed and brush their teeth. Like I never would have had this before. But with that, if I'm starting at 8:30, that means when I get into my office, I need to get work done. I don't check LinkedIn or Facebook or troll too many research articles because I have amount of work I need to do. And as a self-employed consultant, it's different. I could work 60 hours a week. But in an organization, I think the idea that working 8 to 5 is just not possible, especially if anybody has virtual school with their kids and all this kind of stuff. But with that, if there's an expectation of we need this project done, here are all our benchmarks, week 1, week 2, week 6, week 10, where we need to be, and say, you can do as many or as little hours as you want. This just needs to get done. And at the heart of this, and I think we've lost this, is treating adults like adults. Do you know what 90% on these drawings mean? Yes, do it. Get it done by next Monday, however you seem fit. And it often breaks down in 2 ways. One is where we become to micromanage, but the other one is where people take advantage of that. And I've told a couple of my clients this, working from home right now with COVID, as it ticks up now, this is a bit of a different statement. So think about this from 2 months ago, working from home even during COVID, at some level is a luxury. If you have a job and you cannot complete your job working from home, maybe you need to find a way to do it. Convert a room into an office that's not, go work in your garage. I work in my back patio a lot, or I go to a park and take my computer to a park and work on a picnic table. And it's the idea that it is different, but we got to find ways to make it work. And with that, I think people need to produce good work. And I think that's where I've seen a lot of people slack at home, whether that's because they have kids banging on the door, or whether it's because they're like, oh, nobody's watching me. I don't know the reason, but I think if employees did across the board did good work, it wouldn't be as much of an issue. And the problem with that is we always have those outliers. We always have the ones who do amazing and the poor. And so that's often where it becomes a challenge. You indicated that you can say no. This may be more difficult when it's an all hands on deck emergency. Yeah, it is. And it's also one of those things where emergencies are emergencies, but also home emergencies are emergencies. It comes down to the boy who cried wolf. If a company is saying this is all hands on deck emergency every other day, we need to talk about what's an emergency and what are we doing where we're having to do overtime and work all hands on deck regularly, right? That becomes an institutional problem. The other side is there are times when when it's all hands on deck and say, okay, I know you need this project done. I got to go home and get some sleep. I will wake up at 4 a.m. tomorrow and start pumping out at 5 a.m. I will do it. But, and it's goes down to leadership, and it really comes down to trust, which is Patrick Lencioni's in his 5 pillars of leadership. It's that bottom one of trust. If you say you're going to do something, do I trust that you'll do it? And sometimes people have that trust and sometimes people don't. And so when people, if you say, no, I can't do this, I have important things at home to do. If you really do, great. If you just don't want to miss the football game, you can do that. But if you pull that card more than often, people are going to notice, and I think you're going to lose that luxury. Because again, being able to say no when things are hard, it's a luxury. And it goes in that push-pull. If you can create that trust from leadership and from employees to say, hey, this is an emergency, at least, okay, I know you don't abuse it. You rarely say this. It's an emergency. Go for it. I know it's all hands on deck. I trust you. That's a large amount of trust when 10 other people are staying in the office. And so use it well. So because the next day you're gonna have to come in and those 10 employees and be, hey, what happened? They say, you know what, my kids were destroying the house. My wife was at her wit's end and I needed to go home and make sure everybody was okay, or vice versa, right? It's one of those things is we gotta all need to act like adults and just be honest and say, if this is an emergency, great, it really is. Those are wonderful questions. So thank you for asking them. Again, thank you for staying, for those who stayed late. I hope this was helpful. I'll send an email out to everybody just saying thank you for attending this presentation. If you have any questions, shoot me an email. Find me on LinkedIn. I love engaging with people, as I hope from my heart. I just like helping people. I like helping people find out who they are, to find some healthy balance in their life, and to make a great impact. And so thank you for allowing me to be here today. And I will pass it back to Olivia.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. And thank you everyone for joining today and having those awesome questions come in. And for those of you who are able to stay a bit later, but we'll go ahead and log off. But great job today, Chris. And I'll send your information out to everyone tomorrow in the follow-up email as well.
Great. Everybody have a great day.
Yeah, have a great day.